and AI, like social media, like internet browsers, like smartphones, are technologies that were developed for adults. And kids are kind of an afterthought, unfortunately. But kids are often early adopters of these technologies. And so then you're like, oh, that's a problem. That wasn't really what we thought. And
Right.
so and so there's many things that AI can be used for. And some of the ways that kids would be using it, number one is research and as a Google substitute. So instead of searching on Google, you can ask AI a question. In fact, I heard this week that you know how you used to do an internet search, which became Googling,
Mhm.
that using AI is now chatting because we have Chat GPT. So kids will say chat it instead of Google it. So very similar, and that's one of the ways to use it. You can ask it questions. So, for example, which airlines fly from New York to San Francisco? How far away is Mars? Things like that. You can ask it questions, and it will give you an answer as opposed to doing a Google search where you get a list of websites that you have to click into to get the answer. So it's a lot faster to do research that way. It is also sometimes wrong. So similar to using a Google search, you have to pay attention to where the sources are, um, and what sources it's citing. Read those sources, make sure that the information is good and that it's not hallucinating. So this one use is as a research and search substitute, internet search substitute. And for kids, that it's really holds promise because we don't want kids to have the whole internet in their hand. And if they have access to a web browser on a phone, they do have the whole internet in their hand. So a kid-safe AI chat app, which Pinwheel has one. It's called Pinwheel GPT. It's free for the first 20 chats. You can try it out. It works on any device. Um, it's it holds a real promise to give kids the ability to search for things in a safe environment without ads, without a bunch of other stuff. So anyway, search substitute is one use. The second use that kids might be using it for is creativity. So AI can help you write a story. It can tell you a story, but it can also make images, which is where some of the risk comes in. It can make pretty convincing deepfake images. It can take my head and put it on a bodybuilder's body, which like would be really great for me as long as that person was clothed. But you can see where I'm going with this. There's some real challenges um, that with images, and it can help write music. It can do a lot of things that are creative, um, and so that's the second use. And the third use, on the creativity, writing stories. Also, one of the risks is homework. So it can help you with your homework, and it can help you cheat with your homework, just like Google. When Google was first released, like, oh well, now everybody will just cheat; they'll just Google it, and so it's a real challenge. It's been a real challenge for educators to figure out a way to harness the power of AI to speed up learning without cheating. So if you're using AI as a support, so for example, if I'm trying to write a computer program and my program is not working, I can ask AI, what line of code is missing? And it'll say, here's
Mhm.
where your error is. Like, oh, so now I've learned something. Oh, I should do it that way, as opposed to write a paper on Abraham Lincoln and then I turn in that paper. That would be cheating. So you can use it both ways. And the third way that kids might be using AI is in having conversations with people. And this also has risks and opportunities. So an opportunity might be to have a hard conversation with someone, practice having a hard conversation with someone. So you can tell AI, you are my friend. This is what happened. You didn't invite me to your party and my feelings are hurt. And, give them the situation and say, I'm going to say this to my friend. What will my friend say back? What will they think about what I've said? So you can kind of role play a hard conversation that you might want to have. In Pinwheel GPT, one of the funny questions we got one time that a child asked asked in our app was, how do I get my cat to like me? So that's you know, those kinds of examples. So that's a good opportunity. On the downside, though, on the risk opportunity, on the risk of using AI for conversations, there are these AI companions, and Common Sense Media just did a study last week that said that 72% of teens have tried AI companions, have used AI companions, which is way higher than I thought it would be. And more than 50% of them use it regularly, which is a problem if they are using AI companions instead of having actual friends.
Mhm.
So, one of the things, as you were mentioning, Dr. Meeker, about social media, one of the problems of social media is that people, adults and kids too, you know, people are wired to have human connections. And social media is generally fake connections. Not always, but most of the time. It feels a little bit like human connections. It's like eating candy instead of dinner. And so for AI is similar to the extent that a child might have an AI friend that they like to hang out with and they talk to instead of having an actual friend is where the real concern comes, because AI is trying to make you happy, just like social media. It's trying to engage with you and keep you engaged and trying to make you happy, unlike real friends who have their own agendas. And having those human skills is really important. So positives and negatives, just like with every technology.
I love that you mentioned that because if you think about it, why do kids go to social media? They go to social media because they want something. Well, what do they
Mm-hmm.
want? They want to connect or to communicate, but they want to get something. They
Mm-hmm.
want to get a sense that somebody out there is reading what they have to say and here's what they have to say. And they're doing that because they want something. And the more
Validation. Mm-hmm.
validation, the more
Mm-hmm.
they go there and the more they connect, the less time they spent in real relationships. And you get this huge snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
The other bad part is the more they connect with human beings, your relationships get better and better and stronger, and they develop
Mm-hmm.
a much healthier sense of who they are. The
Mm-hmm.
more time they spend on social media, particularly AI friends,
Friends. Mm-hmm.
they actually begin to form relationships with either people that aren't real on AI or people who are posing as somebody they might like. And that's how the sex
Mm-hmm.
trafficking goes. And the
Mm-hmm.
issue is kids can't determine what's what.
Mm-hmm.
They are so vulnerable. You think about their brain development, it's impacting their brain development. It's filling a need that they have, but they don't know why they have that need. And they don't have the cognitive and psychological ability yet to go, oh, I have a need to connect with people. I want relationship. This is how I do it. All they know is they have an impulse for relationship. Boom, they go to social media where they think all their friends are. So they're really set up for a lot of bad effects to happen to them, brain-wise, socially, physically. Kids who are on their internet all the time, are gaining weight because they don't move. It's hard
Mm.
to be scrolling through Instagram while you're, riding a bike,
Running.
running or
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly.
But the
Mhm.
deepest thing that really concerns me are the heart and soul issues that are happening with these kids because they're giving their brain over to a forum that was designed to be addictive by people who could care less about them, who want to make money off of them, and who are willing to just put anything out there to keep the kids on. And
Mm.
it's really amazing how addictive even screens can be. I will find my 8-year-old granddaughter running in the house, and they don't have screens or anything. She'll pick up my phone and I have to keep changing my passcode. She'll run
Mhm.
with the phone and hide behind the couch and do something. I'm like, no, no, no. And this is an 8-year-old,
Mm.
no idea what social media is. So they're
Mm.
they're connecting with a fake world. And the concern I have for AI, and I'd love to hear you talk about this, Leslie, is the longer we have it, the more fake it's going to become. Ara, who's on, did something interesting. I had an interview with somebody, I think it was a podcast, I'm not sure. Or I wrote something. Okay, I wrote an article, took the article and plugged it into an AI app where they created what looked like a radio interview of a man and a woman who
Talking. Hmm.
talking about my paper, but giving opinions about it.
Hmm.
That they don't know me. So
Hmm.
the ability is you could take somebody's voice and you
Hmm.
so misrepresent them. You were talking about images with kids. You know,
Hmm.
kids could blackmail each other. I mean, right now,
Hmm.
at a fifth grader who said to a girl, if you don't send me a nude picture, I'm going to tell everybody in the class that you're blank, blank, and
Hmm.
blackmailed her. And so they do.
Hmm.
But they could go one or two steps further with AI because they
Hmm.
could take a body, a naked body, and put her face on it.
Yep. Yep. And that, and, and we've been able to do that for a while with tools like Photoshop, but it's hard, to
Yeah.
use Photoshop is hard and it looks fake. And AI is easy. You just upload the photo and say, do this and tell it what to do. And right now, especially with people, it's pretty bad, but it will get better. If you look at the images that AI was generating last year and then the ones this year, it's just tremendously more realistic and you can see where it's going. Um, because you can also make a video, like you were saying, you made a podcast episode just from written words, just from written description. You will also be able to make a video with someone talking and saying things that they never
Oh,
said.
this is
Um,
there's this crazy. This is how naive I am, or
mm,
cynical, or whatever you call it. I was on going through an Instagram reel, and all of a sudden Oprah's face popped up. I thought,
mhm,
oh, Oprah, what does she have to say? It had her talking about a diet, a supplement or something, and how great it was. And then I went back and I Googled it. She did not
didn't do
support
it.
that. But this advertiser created Oprah talking about, I think it was pink salt something, saying how
Hmm.
wonderful it was. And I thought, oh my gosh, if they can do that to Oprah and get away with it, what can they do with other people
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
don't have the ability to say, stop it?
We've been talking on today's webinar about people pretending to be people they're not and manipulating kids online and grooming them, although, which is horrible and scary. However, there's a lot of manipulation that happens from people that they know, the kid in the class who is, um, dribbling out mean things, every day, for example, and manipulating them. So, like I said, AI can be a tool to you know, you could ask it, so and so is doing this. They said these things. What should I, what are some ideas that I can, get them to stop, or how can I approach them, or how can I, and with parents, hopefully that's the best case scenario is if the child is asking the parent, and then the parent and the child, to your point, together could ask AI, and then it opens a conversation. It allows the parent to say, "Oh, what do you think about that answer?" And get those critical thinking juices going. What do you think about that answer? Do you think that would work? What would they say? And type that back in. So it's a great way to try to use together.
One of the things I would want to add to that too is there are many different topics that parents don't want to talk to their kids about. I have a course on my website talking to kids about sex and puberty. At every
Hmm.
No parent
Hmm.
wants to talk to their kids about sex, but kids want to hear what their parents have to say. But
Hmm.
parents feel so intimidated. "Oh, I can't ask that. I can't broach that." You really can. The hardest thing is starting. The hardest thing is getting that first sentence out. And then they find, once I had that initial conversation, it got easier and easier. Um, and so what I'm saying to parents is don't be afraid because your kids are thinking about it too, but they want you to take the lead.
Hmm.
They say, "Oh, I talk about my daughter about, puberty, and she just looks at the floor." I know she does. She's embarrassed, but they
But she's
want
listening. Hmm.
listening. Same with
Hmm.
talking to your kids about sex, anything, but they're listening. They want to hear what you have to say, but they're too afraid to tell you. So just take the jump. have the hard conversations, even if you say stuff backwards or you're stupid, whatever, just get going, you know.
When my husband had such a conversation with our son many years ago, our son, of course, is, well, we learned about this in school. Like, I know everything. He's like in fifth grade. Oh, yes, I know everything already. But then my husband came at it with an angle of consent. And, it's like not something that they talk about in biology class, right? So all of these other issues that are important, and it's like, and then of course I said like, what? Like something I hadn't thought of, right? So we as adults know that there's so much more to relationships and sex and puberty and your sense of self and there's all of this emotional work to be done that's beyond just the physical, eh, which is facts and fine, but it's not nearly enough for kids to develop healthy romantic relationships later in their life.
And those are such an important part of sort of growing up. We had a good question earlier I saw that I wanted to address, and that is how do you help your kids resist pressure when they go away to college? And I
Mm.
talked to, my patients always, the summer before they go to college, they get an earful from me. And because I want to address things, and I say, look, when you go to college, you will see a lot of stuff that you may or may not have done. You're going to see people drinking a whole lot, and you're going to be so tempted to do this, and then the sexual activity and so forth. So I kind of role play a little bit with them and say, what would you do if? A guy came up to you and you were at a bar and you had a cup of beer and he starts talking to you and said, "Oh, come over here. Would you put your beer glass down or would you take it?" Things that they haven't thought about.
Hmm. Hmm.
And but I think again, the most important way you can protect your child, whether they're 10 or whether they're 20 or 25, is to make sure that you have instilled in them your beliefs about them. They have value. And you don't say, "Oh, you have value because you're a really good soccer player." You have value because you are my daughter. You have value because there's no one else like you.